If you're a lawyer looking to grow your law firm through online marketing, you've come to the right place. My name is Matt Post.
And I'm Asha Madavi.
And this is the SCM Dynamics Lawyer Marketing Podcast, episode 4. And we're going to be going over content because everybody says content is king. So good time to discuss it. There's a lot of changes in content and how you can best market your firm using the right types of articles and all this good stuff. We're going to get into that, right, Masha?
Yeah. So I want to start with first, everyone keeps saying content's the king. We see it everywhere on social media, and it's became kind of like a staple. Can you talk a bit more? Is that true? And is that true today?
Well, you can there's two for SEO. There's two things. There's content and there's links. And if we're going to throw in a third thing, and this is the obvious, well, at least somewhat obvious, is the content needs to be found, and that gets into technical SEO, right? So you have a foundation. Google has to be able to read your website, right? Or if Google can't read your website, it doesn't matter what the content is. Then you have to have the content that's relevant to what people are searching for. And then you have to have links to give your content a vote of confidence to say this is authoritative, this is accurate, this is good content. But it's all kind of surrounding the content that's on your site. So yeah, content is king, although you can have, I'll say bad content. It could be not as good as the
low quality.
It can be lower quality, or it can be not as in depth, and you can still outrank. So in terms of ranking, you can still outrank with lower quality content. It's more difficult, but you can overcome it with keywords, right? If you have the world's best article about coffee exists, and it's probably not the number one first place thing you find when you type in coffee into Google. Because it's like, what's the intent? Are they trying to buy coffee? Are they trying to research coffee? Even if you type in what's the best article about coffee into Google, you're probably not going to get the best article about coffee. Mm-hmm. It just probably hasn't been promoted enough. Whatever that best article is, we will never see it. Some genius wrote it. They didn't promote it, so they didn't get the links. And a larger corporation, larger company has a PR division behind them that's really promoting their site, and they're getting all these natural links, and those links are votes, and that's what you need to think of a link as, is a vote. Now you can have, when you go and you ask a recommendation from a friend, that would be a link. That's what a link is. It's one website saying, hey, I recommend this other website, and how I recommend it is via link. But you can also have that friend that is either always a yes man, right? They're always going to say yes to everything. And those are the websites that just link to everybody. And so like how trustworthy is that person that always says yes and always agrees?
Not so much.
Yeah, right? Same thing with the website. So I know we're going on a link tangent at this point. I'm coming back to content. Give me a second. But you think of links or websites as friends, and the different personalities of friends. You can have that friend where like, yeah, they're my friend, but I don't really associate myself with them. And that's kind of like the lower quality websites, and they still link. But that type of link doesn't hold as much weight as your best friend. When your best friend says, hey, go see this doctor, right? Well, that's a very solid referral. And websites are viewed, and links between those websites are viewed in the same way. Now, going back to content, right? The better your content is, the more engaging it is. It's the same as a person. The more engaging a person would be, the more friends they're going to have. They're going to put themselves into that popular crowd, and everybody wants to be the cool kid. Same with the web page, same with the website. That's what your content is. Your content is your voice of your website, and it's going to determine whether you're going to be at the cool kids table or you're going to go be sitting by yourself in the corner.
So that ties really perfectly into my next question. My question was, what does it take to be good content for SEO? And to be the popular kid, what does the content have to attract all the other cool kids to link to them or vote for them?
So it has to be generally, right? I'm talking general terms because there's always one-offs. there was a gentleman who was able to rank in the number one place on, I think it was Google Maps. And he used gibberish. He used lorem ipsum text. So
I remember that one.
remember that? Yeah. And so I'm not talking about that. All right. So in general, good content is going to be in-depth. It's going to cover the topic in not just the simple answer to the question. If the question is, what's the best tasting coffee? By the way, if you haven't figured it out, today is going to be all about coffee. It's every example. I don't know why we're going to be talking about coffee, but if you go into Google and you type in, hey, what's the best coffee? You want depth. Right? Usually they don't just want to it's Ethiopian Yirgacheffe. And I butchered that name most likely, but, or it's Colombian, or, why? First of all, what's your criteria for judging coffee? Why does this rank as the best coffee? And what's the comparison? So we're going beyond just answering the query. We're giving first, for me, a good article starts with the answer. So first we're going to say, hey, here's the answer. We're going to, too long, didn't read, here you go. And then let's go in and explain it. And then you're going to go in this longer explanation, and whatever that topic is, go into expanding each one of those categories into their own heading. And of course, draw together with the conclusion. For SEO, you're going to use proper headings. You're going to have an H1 tag that's going to contain the main phrase that you want to rank for. Your title tag is going to echo that main phrase. Also, you want to have something to entice a user to click. If we're talking e-commerce, what I like to do is I like to preface my title tags with "by" whatever it is, because then you're matching intent, right? So you can see, if you're a lawyer and say it's a divorce attorney in San Diego, and they're writing an article about alimony, and it's about the intent of the article is to hire an attorney to help you fight for alimony. It's not about alimony. So there's two different intents. One's not learning about alimony. I'm going to talk about a page where they're talking about hiring a lawyer to help them get alimony. I would have the title tag say, hire the best, lawyer in San Diego for alimony. Something along those lines. But if you hire whatever, not a lot of attorneys do that. But if the intent is to be able to convert, put a converting word in there. Or as an alternative, and a lot of lawyers go for this, put a competitive advantage. If you've personal injury attorney, if you won 99% of your cases, car accident lawyer, Orange County, 99% success. So there's some type of advantage, something to entice the user to click. And that's really the general scope without getting into the nitty gritty. Look at your competition, look at who's ranking in the top 10, and map out on paper using an Excel file. What are they talking about? What's the common topics? And the chances are you want to discuss those same topics. Again, we're talking about sitting at the cool kids table. You know who the cool kids are. They're the ones who are ranking top 10 right now. Right? They're most likely ranking the top 3. So what are they talking about? Discuss those, and then ask yourself and say, what have they not talked about yet? What have they not discussed thoroughly enough that I can go into? Or what answers can I give that can be unique? And then take that path as well.
I think it's really, really great advice, because we've seen a lot of people look what other people are doing and copying that, but thinking outside the box, what they haven't done, is crucial to get ahead. So yeah. I totally agree with that. So we've seen a lot of people talk about the length of content. So people talk about you have to have at least this many words. Some people say it doesn't matter. What's your take, and what is the recommendation? How do you find the right length? Which I think is really the question that we should be answering.
Yeah, and I'm going to shift that question, because the question, and a lot of people, they ask that how long? There's the study out there. It's 1,800 words or 1,750 or whatever it is. But you have to look at the main thing, I'm very much about what's the intent, right? What is the intent of the article? If we're talking about, if we're selling coffee, you're not going to have as much words as if you're talking about the process of roasting coffee. Those are two different intents, and not intents of the article. That's the intent of the person coming to the page. You're talking about the person's intent. What do they want? And now you can create in e-commerce larger length pages through reviews, client feedback, all that good stuff. But I don't think there's a magic number out there. It's when we start talking about an ideal length, then we start getting into content for the sake of content and not actually creating quality. And I've seen, pages rank top 10 with, 300 words, 500 words, 700 words, 2,000 words, 5,000 words. The question is, what is an in-depth article, or what do you need to put on a page to give the best answer to the topic and expand on that answer? And I wouldn't worry necessarily about length. If somebody really wants to get into length, then again, look at the top 10 for whatever search query you're trying to rank for. Count the article, the content or the word that are used within whatever article, and get an average based on that. That's an easy way to do that. There's some software out there that will do those types of analysis for you. The downfall of a lot of the types of software is it takes into account the menu, the header, the sidebar, the footer, all the whole page. And that's not what we want to look at. We want to look at how many words is that article, if that's the path you want to go. I wouldn't even go down that path. The question isn't how long should any article be. The question is, how much space do you need? How long should this article be for you to cover whatever the topic is? And I know with SEO, it's usually a longer length than PPC, and I think that goes into intent too, right? So let me turn this around to you for a second for pay-per-click landing pages. The length of a page and what's on a page, it's not even about the length of the content or even the depth. The intent varies from practice area to practice area, right? Bankruptcy requires more in-depth information usually than a car accident lawyer, right?
I mean, I feel like PPC landing pages are a little bit different mindset a lot of the times. And I feel like I'm often a little bit behind SEO, because really at the end of the day, we're looking at two things. One, we want to provide information that will get the user to convert. It's all about the user. So just with SEO, we need to provide information that will get them to either call you, fill out a form, or if you're selling something, to purchase the item. So think of what they need to know to make the decision, and that's information you provide for the user. However, for Google, we need to provide the keywords and that match what people are searching for. Now, with SEO, we call it keyword stuffing. And that is literally what you have to do with Google to get your quality score to be as high as you can get it to be. So two things we look at: content for the user to convert, and then put those keywords in there to increase your quality score. That's it. And I feel like SEO was somewhat like that, but now Google's so much better with the keywords that you don't have to put all of the keywords as much as you do with PPC. And probably PPC will get there because we're doing a lot more automated bidding, which means it's going to have a lot more search terms going to the same pages. And I feel like we're a little bit behind, but we're kind of catching up to SEO.
Now with the intent, going back to say, let's compare again, bankruptcy to personal injury.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Personal injury, you still have those different intents, right? Because I guess not intent, it's how fast somebody's going to make a decision, right? Personal injury is very fast decision, right? They're going to land on the page. They're most likely going to bounce, or they're going to convert fairly quickly. So the length of that page is less important. I mean, I know you still have to have, a lot of those key factors in there that's going to help convert, social signals and all that kind of stuff. But we can go into bankruptcy or, even family law, or if we're talking about corporate law, it's a different type of user usually, and they want more information, right? So is that a factor that's taken in when creating these landing pages to help convert paid users or paid pay-per-click visitors?
Well, I think a big part of it goes into what keywords are you targeting? Are you targeting just specifically the high intent users who are specifically looking, let's say, best divorce attorney in city or car accident lawyer near me, for example? Those are like very high intent keywords. And for those, you really want to show that you are the best, you're the person to call. And they don't need to know about like, what is the car accident lawyer and like how does a case handle. That's really not an important factor at this point. They're looking to hire now. But if your campaign's built out, or if you have like specific campaigns that are like really more like trying to promote information, people who are not quite ready, then you will definitely need to provide a lot more information. So it really goes back to your campaign structure, what you're really targeting, and the mindset of the user based on the keywords that you're ranking for or showing up for, that you're bidding for.
Yeah, and you're right. I think there's a lot how SEO, I guess, used to be create a page for every, variation of every search phrase, and each one had its own intent, and you can rank them separately. Where now, more often than not, you have a collection of multiple phrases that you're going after with a primary target, and then smaller targets under that.
I think it's really important to mention there are some people who might have a campaign that targets both high intent and low intent keywords. And for those, if that's your campaign structure, then your landing page probably should provide the information for high intent at the top of the page. And then you're going to have a much longer format of the page. And then towards the end, you're going to have all the additional information for people who are not quite ready to convert to get them to that stage. So that's where you're going to have what to look for in the best lawyer, maybe. I mean, depending what you are targeting. If it's, let's say, if it's a bankruptcy, talk about the bankruptcy process and what can get you and the benefits of filing for bankruptcy. So once again, really a lot depends on your campaign structure and how separated into intent it is.
Okay. Now with PPC, going back, content is king. Is content king in PPC?
I mean, it's important to get your conversions, but I wouldn't call it content king. I would call strategy a king. Because you have to have a strategy in place. Without your strategy, it doesn't matter how great your content is. If the right people don't get your page, you're wasting your money.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if you don't, it's similar to, similar to SEO. If you don't get the ranking, then it doesn't matter what's on your page. If it does, if nobody sees it, who cares if it's the best article about coffee? Nobody knows about it. Cool.
So I know we've seen, like, Matt, me and you, we've interviewed a lot of people in the past. And when we asked a lot of candidates, what are the top elements you have to have on your page? We heard people say title tags, description tags, keyword tags. What do you have to say about that?
I would not agree with keyword tags because there isn't a system out there that uses a keyword tag for anything. I give people the benefit of the doubt when interviewing people that they're nervous. So if they say keyword tag, I usually just I ignore it and then probe into other questions. Title tag, yes. I mean, title tag is important, just A, as the ranking factor, and B, I mean, that is that's often what is shown on a search engine. I say often because Google now will create their own title tag if it doesn't like what you have. So, but it is, a very, very valuable piece of information to convey to a search engine from your site. Description tag, not as a ranking factor, but as a click-through, factor. You would convert the searcher to a visitor through your description, because that's what shows up on the search engine. Again, Google can rewrite this thing, and it will bold similar text in your description to the search query, and that can bring eyes to your listing and get additional clicks, and unofficially those additional clicks to your page, as long as they don't bounce right away, it can help your positioning. There's been a few different studies that have shown that, even though Google denies it, they deny a lot of things, and it turns out to be,
do.
yeah, I mean, domain ranking.
What's that?
They deny, yeah, we don't use domain ranking. Like, domain ranking is proprietary to Moz. No, we don't use domain ranking. Blah blah. Every time somebody, oh, what do you use domain ranking? No, we don't. We don't use domain. Finally, somebody words it right, and I've been like shouting from the mountaintops every time I hear this. I'm like, oh, why don't you just word it a different way? Stop using the word domain ranking, because they're saying that because the word domain ranking is proprietary to a company. So therefore, they don't use it because that's somebody else's metric. Of course they don't. They're just playing with words so they can deceive you and say there's no domain rank. Finally, Will from Distilled, it was Distilled and they sold. And anyways, I think he's the one who asked them, finally, do you have a metric that ranks, that rates the authoritativeness of a website as a whole entity or something of that sort? And they said, oh, yeah, we do. That's domain. And it drives me crazy. Anyways, here's the thing. When Google tells you that something is a ranking factor, believe them. It's a ranking factor. Like, it's so important that they are actually divulging, and they're trying to get people to take a certain action, right? Like, mobile speed is a ranking factor. It is, like, we've announced it. We are saying it's the upcoming, we talked about a couple weeks ago, that the web vitals, the web core vitals, they're going to be a ranking factor. When Google tells you that something's a ranking factor, it is a ranking factor. When Google says that something is not a ranking factor, run some tests, because they might be playing with words. Just putting that out there.
Right. Whenever you say Google, I think like Mr. Burns going, ha, ha, ha.
Right? That's pretty much it. It's like Mr. Burns and Scrooge McDuck got together and made a search engine.
Our favorite. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different elements. When it comes, and I feel like we've covered this, but I'm going to come back to it anyway. Back in the day, we had a lot of conversations about you have to have so many keywords on the page, keyword stuffing. Then there's a huge push towards keywords that is important. We're able to really understand what the page is about. What do you recommend? What do people do? Do they focus on keywords? Do they completely ignore them? Maybe something in between?
So I look at topics. So is not necessarily the exact word. And so you can use the word attorney and lawyer interchangeably. And attorneys and lawyers, the pluralizations. I mean, Google's smart. You go to Google search engine and type in car accident lawyer, and you'll see that the word attorney, if it appears in the description or the title, it's going to be bold because it's going to match. I mean, Google knows that those two are alike. And I don't go to look at necessarily keyword density, which is, I think that's what we used to call is, what percentage of that keyword was used as a ratio to the rest of the text on the page. I would look more towards whether or not a topic was discussed thoroughly in proportion to the rest of the page. So kind of a shift on what keyword density would be. It's more about how much of that page is taken up, how much of the real estate of that page is taken up by a specific topic. That seems to be more important. And again, there are tools out there that will analyze this, and they give false positives, false negatives. But at least if you don't know, if you're new or you're getting into SEO, it's not a bad. I'm gonna get rocks thrown at me for saying this, but bear with me. It's not a bad way to kind of get started, because it makes you get into that mindset of analysis. So I'm not saying to it is a bad habit to learn, to get into, would be because it's not accurate, but the actual study itself and the process of studying and analyzing, it's a good place to start. As you use these tools, and they'll tell you, oh, like, this, your top competitors say, car accident lawyer, 20 times, and you only say it 15 times. Okay, that's true. And you may want to increase the amount of times that you're discussing a car accident lawyer, but you also have to look at the like terms. And really, you're going to, even if you mismatch and you say, hey, this is like, I score an F in their, like, whatever, right, their tool, you can still rank, because it's about whether or not your page covers the same topics as the other pages that are currently ranking. In Google, they're looking at portions of the page, sections of the page, and they're going to say, do these sections match up with what a valid or what a best answer should be? And it's going to score it appropriately. And that's, it also, you're going to have, like, their machine learning that is going to learn as time goes on. And so you're going to have a natural shift in the results once there's a shift in trend. Google's system is pretty much self-learning to an extent. So you can't really go and say, hey, if I put the word car accident lawyer on my page, and my page is, 2,000 words, and I put the word car accident lawyer in there 700 times, because, and I know 700 would be crazy. Just an example. Don't do that. But if you did that, because the top 3 pages have the word car accident lawyer 700 times, so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to have crap content, you're still not going to rank. You still have these other things. And even going back to that example that I briefly mentioned, where the person, they ranked, it was for a doctor or dentist, and I can't remember. Anyways, it was Kyle Roof was the name of the guy, and he came out with a tool to kind of analyze pages. And he made a page that was full of lorem ipsum gibberish text, except for using keyword density. Right. But what they don't talk about is that wasn't the only thing he did. He didn't just create the page and use a percentage of keywords scattered around like garbage. And it was like, hey, it's perfect. We rank number 1. No, there were other optimizations that took place that he looked at. He looked at page structure. He looked at the technical SEO. He looked at the page hierarchy and how the directories were laid out. And he knew which directory. I mean, there was a backlinks that took place, right? There were other things that came into play. It wasn't just that. There's 100 plus, 200 plus different ranking factors. Most of them are minor. There's a few of them that are major. Whether you're discussing a topic, to be able to rank for that topic is a major ranking factor, but it's not about meeting a magical density. Because look at it this way. If people have access to these tools, and you have 100 attorneys that have access to the same tool, and they're all trying to rank for car accident attorney, and they're all in Southern California, and they are all told to put car accident attorney 700 times on their 2,000 word article, you only have top 10. Mm-hmm. Right? Like,
which ones?
Yeah, that's why keyword density isn't a thing. It used to be. Like,
a lot of things were a lot easier back then.
Yeah, like you can do a lot of like shady stuff back in like 2002, 2001, 2005. I mean, up until 2008, you still do.
Yeah.
Up to 2012, I'm going to go with.
I think it's about right. I think that's when things have started to really change. And unfortunately, there's still so much misinformation out there. A lot of people go back by articles that were written 10 years ago and thinking, oh, that's how things should be done. And that is not the case. And I just cannot emphasize how important it is to be really up to date, because things change so fast in this world and we need to be up to date. And that means you have to read a lot of content. Just pay attention to what's happening. Don't read articles from 10 years ago and think that's still what is true. Some things are, but not a lot.
Yeah, and an issue that you have with a lot of these articles too is they're based on articles that were written 10 years ago. So they'll just perpetuate whatever that falsehood is. And that's common. So it's really about testing, right? Test it out. Like, if one thing that I like to do, and it's been mentioned, this isn't a new idea. I never profess to have like ever invented anything. I just take other people's really good ideas, test it, and say it works, and incorporate it. I'm not an inventor. I'm not this. Never have professed to be. There's a good idea that's been out there. It's floated around. People have talked about it. I've used it. I do it. It's great. Use your Google Search Console. Look at your page, and or use a keyword tracking tool and look at your cusp keywords. So look at your keywords that a page is ranking for, but ranking on the second page. Typically, you want to hit like the upper half of the second page. So position 11 through 14, 11 through 15. And if you are ranking for a keyword that your page doesn't discuss, add it to your page. Now, that's not keyword density. That's just looking and saying Google is biased for my page to rank for this. And I don't discuss it. And maybe I should put it in here. Maybe I should write a paragraph about it. And that's just, that it can help give you an idea of how to expand your page, not just to appease search engines, but it can actually truly help, the user. It could be something where Google's saying, hey, people like this topic. We think you are kind of around, you're pretty close to this topic, but you're not quite there yet.
I think it's really, really great advice.
You get quick wins.
Yeah.
That's what it's about, is looking at those custom keywords and seeing where you at, where can you, to use, so many people are going to be throwing rocks at me. The lowest hanging fruit, right? That is the lowest hanging fruit, is where you're not quite on that front page yet, but you're almost there.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to tools, I know there's a lot of SEO tools out there. For today's podcast, give me one tool that you want to, you think like most people should at least look into.
I'm not giving my secrets away. One tool that's really good that I like is Phrase. Frase.io, I believe. I like it just because it's good for making content outlines. It's not going to write your articles for you. It's not going to look at keyword density, but it's a way to really gather a lot of information regarding those sites that are highly ranked, and it shows you on your screen what headlines are using. So you can look at common headlines or common topics that your competitors are writing about, all on one screen without having to bounce around to all the pages and jot it down and do all your notes. And I used to do that. I would literally take a spreadsheet and map out all the different elements that I wanted to analyze. And then, I would gain, what percentage of use and all this other fun stuff. But once I got Phrase, I was like, oh, wow, this does what I was doing manually. Awesome. And it, you can use it and give it over to a content writer, and they'll have a pretty good understanding. You should be able to kick out a pretty good article that's very in-depth. So that one's a huge time saver, and it's very easy to use. You literally type in the keyword, the key phrase that you want to use for your analysis. It does all this magical voodoo in the background, and then it kicks you out to a page where you can start writing. On the top, what I do, I go on the top and I say, hey, just create a content brief. And then ask what I want to use for the content brief. Bam, I select what I want, hit go. It does some more magic, and it kicks out a content brief. I look it over, I edit it as however I want it to be. Done. Super easy, very not technical. So that's Phrase.io. No, they're not a sponsor. No, they're not paying me. No, I don't make money off of this. Yes, I just gave away my secret sauce.
See, these are really educational podcasts. Getting some secrets out of you.
Well, the cool thing is that AppSumo had Phrase, and we got in on it. And so we got our lifetime thing on Phrase. That was good. AppSumo, man, it's AppSumo is another good one. It doesn't actually let you, it's not software we use, but it's a cool site for finding discounts on software that's like up and coming. So
definitely, it's helped our company a lot. We got a lot of really great tools through it. So if you haven't heard of it, definitely check it out.
There's some of the like software that we have that we still haven't used. Like we have access to it. I know you're looking like, what software is that? I know. There's software back. We just haven't been, we haven't gotten to the point of implementing it yet. That's
We
what it
will.
is. But we have lifetime software to it. I'm waving this. Did I have this before? I've been like waving my pink marker around. I don't
I
know.
don't think you had, but I like
Right?
it.
This is what I use to actually mix my secret sauce is my pink marker.
You have like a little witch cauldron over there.
It is, that's really how SEO works is it's magic. It's what,
Speaking of SEO,
oh, I guess say speaking of magic.
maybe a little bit of both.
Oh,
So I have two questions. One, what happens when someone copies your page or your site? What can you do if that happens? Like, what action can one take to protect themselves?
okay. So it depends on to what extent. And I remember when we launched SEM Dynamics, some guy, I don't know who it was, copied one of our pages, our service pages, verbatim. He even copied our name. SEO, I mean, like literally like copied it and pasted it on his website as a service. And I was like, wow, that's pretty shady. I was so pissed off. If somebody does that to you, right? If somebody like literally copies what you had, then the steps I would take, I would file, I'm going to butcher this. I'm actually going to Google, give me a second. I think it's a DMCA, helps if I spell right. I think that's what it is. Yeah, DMCA violation, like whatever, right? You file, every host has one. So you find out where the website is hosted at, and you file this complaint with their host. It's a takedown like notice essentially. And the host has to comply with this if they're in the US. And if the person doesn't take it down, then the host will shut off their website. You can do the same thing with Google. You can file this DMCA violation with Google. And I did that. And Google will take that page off their index. You can file the same thing with if they're using a CDN, if they're using like Cloudflare, or if they're using any service they have that they are copying verbatim what you have on your page and they're republishing it without, authorization, then you can file these takedown notices. And I say without authorization. If you're syndicating stuff, if you're, this isn't, I mean, it goes without saying, I'm saying it anyways. If you put out a press release and it goes out to 1,000 different websites, and one of those websites is your competitor because they subscribe to be able to publish press releases, you syndicated a press release. That's what you did. You can't go to them and say, hey, take that my press release off your, no, you syndicated it. Right? You gave permission for people to copy it. So with that, you can't do anything. But if they copy your service page verbatim, file DMCA or sue them. That's what I would do. If they don't copy it verbatim, and it's just, they just took your idea, they took your, and I know what you're talking about, because yesterday we found out, I'm not going to say names, I'm not throwing people under the bus, but we redesigned a client's website last year, launched it, it looks beautiful, great, it works great, whatever. Yesterday we came across a website that took the same design, and guess what? It happens. Somebody does that, nothing you can really do about it. You can just be like, well, flattery, I guess. They're behind the curve because I already had it. Yeah, there's not you. Design-wise, you can't
happened to us several times, which I guess we should take as badge of honor.
I'm sure you've seen it with landing pages too. Like you create a landing page, right? Your competitors are always clicking on everybody's stuff, looking.
Oh yeah, and I've seen multiple competitors have very similar designs. So I'm like, oh well, I know who copied who, but there's not much we can do with design. Now let's come back to content. How much does it have to be similar to your original? What if they change a couple sentences? Like, what is a threshold where you can't really do much about it?
I don't know.
What if it's 80 or 90% the same and they just changed their name and maybe they added a couple things to it?
I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I would research it. Like if everything was the same, but they swapped out the name, I would still file a takedown. I mean, it's a copy. Just because you change the company name doesn't really, I'm sure there's a percentage there, 20% or whatever it is, that has to be changed. I don't know what it is. I would be calling a lawyer and saying, hey, what's that percentage? And then do whatever was appropriate at that time. Or even reach out to the site owner and say, hey, I'm not quite sure if you're using an SEO company or whatever, but they copied our stuff. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I would do at that point. In terms of SEO, generally, it depends on how far, how much time there was, and the authoritativeness of the website. If I publish an article and then 3 months or 6 months from now, somebody copied the majority of the article, and I'm worried that Google's going to view this as duplicate content, that's highly unlikely. The article is most likely already in Google's index, and actually I would know that because I look at whatever articles we're doing and I make sure they're indexed. So I would be doing my job right, and within the month or whatever the expected time is, that article is indexed. And if it's in Google's index and then somebody else copies it almost verbatim and puts it onto the website, I wouldn't worry about it in terms of SEO, because Google will realize that that content is a duplicate of my content and not give it equal or as much weight. So I wouldn't worry about it in terms of SEO, if that's kind of the question. It wouldn't take down like the value of my content. There have been instances where it has, and that's because a very highly authoritative site is the one that duplicates it in a short period of time. So if you have a site that's very unknown, does not have a lot of links, it doesn't get a lot of ranking, but but another site, or you take that article and you put it on another site without giving yourself a backlink, don't do that. It's kind of foolish. Get a backlink, it's free. But if you do that and Google picks up that other article and then looks at your article either around the same time, or sees theirs first, they're going to think that yours is a duplicate of that one. I can see that. That's just logically could happen, right? It's like, this is the high authority one. You're the kid in the corner. This is the cool kid. Cool kid does no wrong. Little kid in the corner, you're kind of fishy. I'm not going to trust you too much. You're the one that copied them. Whether that's true or not, is a different story. So I would, if I'm republishing or repurposing my own content, I would have a citation back to my original article. If I noticed that somebody else copied almost all of my article and was down the line, and if it wasn't meant to, like, if it wasn't where the example, this guy like copied our service page verbatim, and they looked at my page and it had to do with a certain article, and they copied the article. It's what it is. I would go to them and say, hey, I published this at this time. I don't mind you using this content. I do ask that you cite your source back to my article. I would start with that, because, hey, you might just get a free backlink. Why not?
Might be worth it, yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. And okay. I think like the reason I brought it up, because I've seen it happen, and I feel like there's a bit of confusion about what to do. So I want you to kind of go into detail of what different scenarios are. I also wanted to share a tool called Copyscape.
Oh, yeah.
Which, non-sponsored, but I absolutely love this tool. I use it for a very long time at this point. And what a tool does is you scan your site, and it will tell you how similar your content is with the content of other sites out there. Be careful when you use it, because sometimes it will like tell you there's site-wide sections, like footer could be similar, and obviously everyone has very similar language for those sections. Yeah. But when you go through it, I think it'll be really great at like really understanding how similar is your content with other websites out there. And if you're using a content writer or maybe a SEO agency, that you will help you understand, like, are they really writing unique content? Sometimes all you gotta do is go in and change a couple words, couple sentences to make your content a little bit higher quality in eyes of Google. Even if you didn't copy it, there's sometimes you'll use same phrases. That being said, there will be times when you have like industry-wide phrases that everyone uses, and that's okay. So don't use it as a your Bible, but like use it as a guide kind of to understand your own content on your site.
Yeah, so don't get upset if somebody copies the phrase, call us now for your free consultation.
Yeah, because we'll see that a lot and everyone says it and that's not a problem.
Yeah. But that's a good point. Yeah, Copyscape is a good site. And if you're getting content in from other SEOs, and most law firms are going to use outside content writers, outside SEOs. So that's a great idea. Check your site before you get an embarrassing email from a competitor saying, "Hey, you're ripping me off," because you most likely are unaware of that being the case. You're an innocent victim to another agency who's being shady.
Yeah. Or even better, before posting anything on your site, run the specific blog post or article through plagiarism tools. I personally use Small SEO Tools plagiarism tool. It's easy, it's free. I do it online.
Yeah. I use Grammarly.
Even better. Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a ton of tools out there. So before you post anything, just run it, make sure it's not plagiarized. If it is, like sometimes it'll pick up a couple of sentences, change them before you post it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, or at least see where that's referencing. Saying, hey, we found this over here. Go look at that article. And if it's the same thing, have a conversation with your agency. Kick back the article and say, no, give me something else. Yeah, cool. I think that's about the time we have, right? I think we're...
Last question. What do you say to people?
We're going overtime. I didn't bring enough coffee. Okay, what's up?
What do you say to people who don't believe in SEO?
Oh, geez.
I had to ask you that.
What do I say to people who don't believe in SEO? What do I say to people who don't believe in vaccines?
Thank you. That's all I want to hear.
I know where you're getting this from, and I forgot that you were going to bring this up. I mean, if you don't believe in the moon, does it mean the moon doesn't exist? If you believe that vaccines don't work, do you think that they don't work? I mean, vaccines is the hot topic, so that's where I'm going with it. And yeah, it's controversial, and it's controversial for a point. Here's the thing. Any popular term you're searching for, I will bet some pretty good money that an SEO had to do with those top 3 listings, most likely, with the exception of maybe Wikipedia. I mean, it's one of those top 3s. There's an SEO behind it. So if SEO doesn't work, then as long as there are search engines, there are people who are going to be able to optimize a site for a search engine. That doesn't mean that magic voodoo skills exist to automatically make your site pop up number 1. No, that's BS. That doesn't exist. There isn't a magic bullet there. There is making sure that a site is optimized to best convey the message and the context of a page to a search engine. And that's really what an SEO does. So I would really question what they think an SEO does. That's the nice version.
Thank you for that.
Yep. All right. And so that wraps it up. Yeah.
Yep. We're done. We're all set for today.
Yep. Y'all have a good one and talk to you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.